Hey there. Sorry for the abrupt re-upload, but we got into some circumstances very recently regarding the original upload. A few days ago, our gamer's video has been copyright claimed by a game company who shall not be named because we don't want to risk any other potential copyright claim by this very game company for using official footage from one of their games, circa 2011 or so. We can't claim the copyright claim, although they rejected the claim, so we had to appeal it, but risking a potential copyright strike by the same company. We're in the midst of a meme warfare of sorts, posting them at Twitter a bunch of macrofacos in response to this unfair copyright treatment, which got our TwitX account now locked down. We even tried nicely asking them to retract the copyright claim, although we got no response so far, and I don't think we'll get any, and I think things might be going worse from now, since they're so clearly into maintaining the copyright claim no matter the cost. The original video and this video as well fall under protections of fair use constituted by Section 107 of the Copyright Act, as you might well know. An attempt at copyright claiming this video falsely or copyright striking it might be in violation of said Copyright Act, no matter if it's for profit or not, which clearly is the intent of said unspeakable game company. Needless to say, I have to implore the rest of the viewers of this video to keep the pressure up and be ready to add said game company on TwitX with macrofacos in case things get worse. I'll keep you updated on our official Discord server as we speak. If they want war, we'll give them war. In the meantime, just for safety reasons, we have to make a re-upload of this video, editing out any instance of said game company's game, so we avoid further false copyright claims. Enjoy.
Ship log, July 15th, 2024, Earth E703. Forces beyond this planet's capabilities are looming near their vicinity. The tiny dwarf idiot is making his moves again, and someone who I might assume couldn't be other than my dumbass self is provoking the guy, poking the high-tech AI-driven hornet's nest. I normally wouldn't give a rat's ass about it, but I have to ensure the safety of this dimension, for it is in danger and I have greater plans for it. Seems like my Bothcan bitch's brick has come to a great halt. It is time to get back to work. Signing it off, Prime. In interdimensional unity, we fight.
Oh man, I love Call of Duty, and I hate women and minorities. Oh hey, JMAA here, welcome to the Gamer Zone. I'm just enjoying my time playing one of my favorite gaming pastimes that I got, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Which is totally a game made for grown-ups like me. Let me tell you, it has been never a better time to be a gamer like me. That being said by the majority of gaming corporations on the planet, I sure do when game corporations have more power to influence the world than any of all of us combined. Oh, that kind of sounds depressing. The gaming industry grows more and more every year and moves more money than Hollywood and the music industry combined. Probably, maybe, I didn't do the math properly. Do Call of Duty players do math? But in all seriousness, the data from 2022 say that the revenue of the gaming industry worldwide was estimated at almost $347 billion US, at least according to the Vintage's TheNewWorld.com blog. My god, you can afford a lot of peanuts with that much money. But even then, with a growing industry, don't you have to feel that the gaming industry has become more woke? There is an ever-growing presence of trances in the gamer community right now as we speak. Don't look at me. We've come so far from referring to as gamers to gamblers back in the 15th century, and then to those in the US who were playing war games and Dungeons and Dragons, to this whole mishmash of bums and trances and minorities in here. What's really going on? Etymologically speaking, the term gamer refers to someone who plays board games and video games currently. But jokes aside, there's a whole divisive discourse about who's a real gamer and who isn't. Even to this day, some of the discourse even has been toxic. Not to mention the whole debacle that Gamergate brought with itself, which, by the way, there's a documentary series about it that we're working on, and it's only $5 a month at becomagagoon.today. Got you with a shilling. But it's no wonder why that our video about anti-Semitism had too many memes, according to that comment, even though the end of the video gets dark enough to give you chills of how horrible that can be. Alright, so let's set aside the jokes and gaps and say, why do we have to discuss this right now? Gamers, at least what I'd refer later as the core gamer demographic, were historically demonized by greater institutions and mainstream media for ages. But the irony of all is that this very core gamer demographic is also being demonizing outsiders to that same demographic. And I cannot simply take that reality. While gaming should not be demonized, it should be clear that it isn't an excuse to demonize marginalized groups outside of gaming who just want to get in. After all, they just want to enjoy games as much as we fellow gamers do. This in no way is going to be yet another video essay that's going to be probably brief. Like the video essays in the store that comment on the same topic. I mean, just look at the video length of this. What I'm hoping here is to deeply dissect what's really behind the gamer identity as a way to teach the gamer audience and the gaming industry how to be more inclusive and improve its ways somewhat. The common consensus of the gaming community has always been of broadening the audience, expanding to a wider demographic. But the ways the industry does this, especially the AAA industry, are not enough. And the lingering ghost of Gamergate still holds up to this day in the shadows of our online ecosystem. Imagine that! Anyway, in order to dissect the gamer identity as a whole, to solve this division in some way or another, we need to deep dive into the root reasons why such division exists amongst gamer kind, and to understand why, we need to know the economic, social, and historical circumstances of not just the gaming industry, but also the gaming community as a whole. So without further ado, let's start by the very beginning of why gaming has become woke, with some history lessons. The video game crash of 1983 was a major turning point for the gaming industry. Prior to the crash, the industry was dominated by a handful of large companies, and games were primarily marketed to young children. However, the crash led to the bankruptcy of several major game developers and publishers, and the industry was forced to adapt. In the years that followed, the gaming industry became more diverse, with a wider range of games being developed for a broader audience. One of the most significant changes that occurred in the gaming industry after the crash of 1983 was the rise of home consoles. Prior to the crash, arcades were the primary platform for gaming, but the introduction of home consoles such as the Atari 2600 and Nintendo Entertainment System made it possible for people to play video games in their own homes. This led to a significant increase in the number of people who played video games, and it also helped to broaden the appeal of gaming to a wider range of people, except, well, the Atari 2600, which, well, it ended up in a landfill somewhere. This industry was predominantly male-centric, and you'll see a lot of the games in the era taking a very male-centric approach, save for some exceptions. There was now in a defunct website I had to scoop from the Wayback Machine, an article written by Graham Kirkpatrick about the demographics of gaming in the 80s and 90s, which basically goes, and I quote,
"Gaming discourse here becomes entangled with normalization processes, and the concept of gameplay is used to police gamer identity. The authentic gamer opposes gameplay to story and other varieties of frippery in games. Said fops, we are told in a review of a fighting game, get taken in by good-looking moves when what really matters is their effectiveness in intense gameplay. Being an authentic gamer involves being cool, liking the right music, and appreciating the intensity of gameplay. It's a mark of Colt to mastered this game, states a review of Ridge Racer in February 1996. This concerns what Consalvo calls gaming capital. There is an established constituency for gamers, with rules for securing recognition and affording esteem, and these things can be accumulated. Understanding good gameplay is the mark of a real gamer, and it opposes them to the uncool. It also marks them out as young. A review in CVG 171, February 1996, of Namco Museum, which made arcade classics available for the PlayStation, contains numerous references to older people. Old duffers will rejoice in being able to play the games again, and are referred to as old sods. These players would have been in their late 20s or early 30s at the time. Similarly, in the November 1995 issue, page 48, there is a negative reference to the kind of maths your dad might like. Train spotters, Games Workshop enthusiasts, and even board game heads are all condemned as dull. CVG 168, November 1995, page 22. These statements are distancing strategies, and their effect is to differentiate the gamer from other identities. Through these negative relations, gamer identity takes on a kind of weight of its own, enabling aggressive assertions of positive presence, like the reference to the fact that even the women behind the counter at WH Smith's have heard of PlayStations now. Page 52, CVG, 1968. The heavily gendered character of this discourse contrasts with the earlier magazines, which were prone to reflection on the gender bias in computing/gaming culture. CU19, page 41, for example, contains criticism of the absence of female characters in a game, while the following issue carries a critique of sexism of the Rescue the Princess genre that is common in adventure games. To be sure, these are isolated sentences and not extended lines of reflection, but it is difficult to imagine them appearing in the 1990s magazines, where the gender identity of gamers has been firmly consolidated.
This Rescue the Princess genre way later will become the topic of discussion on female-centered gaming spaces, especially from figureheads like Anita Sarkeesian and the sort, which also came under heavy scrutiny from the male-centric core gamer audience. But I'm probably getting too ahead of myself. Like I said previously, the main point of this is that the industry grew to a wider audiences, even more throughout the course of its history. 2007 coincided with the release of the iPhone 1 year after the original Nintendo Wii, and by that time the game industry became unmonopolized by the handful of companies of before, or at least the first signs of that just started to show up. Over the years, gaming has changed a lot thanks to technology. Gaming devices have gotten way more powerful and parts have gotten smaller. This has made computers a lot faster and cheaper. Back in the 1990s, a 64MB RAM card was a big deal for gamers, but now you can get a 4GB RAM card for about the same price. That's a huge difference, because of advances in semiconductor technology, which have made it possible to make smaller and more efficient transistors. That's a lot of dedicated wham! These changes have had a big impact on games. They look better, with more detailed graphics and immersive environments. The physics engines are also better, so things move and interact more realistically, and artificial intelligence has got a lot smarter, so opponents are more challenging and fun to play against. Most of the time. These advances also open up new possibilities for game developers. They can now create more ambitious games with bigger worlds and more complex simulations. And because of more affordable components, more people can enjoy the latest games than ever before. The future of gaming is looking bright, with virtual reality and augmented reality on the rise. These technologies could change how we interact with games. Cloud gaming is also getting more popular, which means you can play high-end games on any device with an internet connection. Although we don't really want to talk about the Stadia because that's a whole different story, but smartphones especially increase even in computer power. Long gone are the era of the Nokia brick phones that barely played Snake and Doom RPG with very archaic graphics. Now you got a phone that can play advanced hardware accelerated graphics smoothly. Even dribble like Raid Shadow Legends runs real smooth in these black magic contraptions. You call that a computer? That belongs in a museum. But you'll also realize that by manufacturing said gaming hardware, it became even more expensive to manufacture. Back in 2006, the PlayStation 3 alone, each console unit cost $805 US to manufacture, given a constant race towards more realistic graphics. Although in 2006, according to possibly some Reddit posts apparently, when the PS3 was released, its production cost was a subject of much speculation and discussion. The initial estimate of around $805 per unit was widely reported, leading many to believe that the PS3 was an incredibly expensive console to manufacture. What a jolly day for gaming journalism, eh? However, the actual cost of producing a single PS3 was significantly lower, probably closer to $539. Wait, wasn't that PS5? The discrepancy between the estimated and actual cost can be attributed to several factors. Firstly, the $805 figure likely included not only the direct cost of assembling the PS3, but also indirect expenses related to research and development, marketing, advertising, and distribution. These additional costs, which are essential for bringing any product to market, can significantly increase the overall production cost. One of the key reasons for the PS3's high production cost was its cutting-edge technology. It was the first console to feature a Blu-ray drive, which was a new and expensive optical disc format at the time. The Blu-ray drive allowed for higher storage capacity and faster data transfer speeds, but also required specialist components and manufacturing processes, making it more costly than traditional DVD drives. Another significant factor contributing to the PS3's production cost was its powerful cell processor. Co-developed by Sony, IBM, and Toshiba, the cell processor was a revolutionary piece of hardware that combined multiple processing cores and a unique architecture. This processor delivered impressive performance, but it was also incredibly complex to design, manufacture, and program. The high cost of the cell processor, along with the challenges associated with software development for it, undoubtedly factored into the PS3's overall production cost. Furthermore, the PS3's sheer size and complexity added to its manufacturing costs. Unlike smaller and simpler consoles, the PS3 required a substantial amount of manual assembly. This labor-intensive process, combined with the need of precision and quality control, resulted in high production costs compared to more compact and streamlined consoles, although it did usually come at a cost of violation. It's important, though, to note that the high production cost of the PS3 did not necessarily translate into a higher retail price. Sony likely subsidized a portion of these costs to make the console more affordable to consumers. Additionally, over time, as production processes became more efficient and component costs decreased, the overall production cost of the PS3 likely declined, allowing Sony to make a profit while still offering the console at a competitive price. Oh, Google Gemini, what are you doing? I mean, this might not be accurate information about console manufacturing costs, but you still get that idea. So companies like Nintendo or Apple played relatively smart, but just because Sony did a massive PR blunder with its E3 presentation of the console,
giant enemy crab,
Ridge Racer,
and given the economics of the situation, they broadened the audience for their consoles and systems even to a more casual audience. That's why a lot of Wii games are just family-friendly oriented games that even your grandpa will play. Back in 2006, Nintendo and Apple made a strategic move to broaden their audience for their consoles and systems by targeting casual gamers. We recognize that the core gamer demographic, which is primarily composed of cis white straight males, was already well served by Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox. Nintendo, with its Wii console, introduced a revolutionary motion-controlled gaming experience that made gaming more accessible and enjoyable for people of all ages and skill levels. Family-friendly games like Wii Sports and Mario Kart Wii became instant hits, allowing families and friends to play together and have fun. Fun, unless you're dropping a blue shell on me, for which, fuck you, Kevin! Apple, on the other hand, leveraged its expertise on mobile devices and software to create the iPod and iPhone. These devices not only revolutionized the way people listen to music, because after all, if it wasn't for them, I'd not listen to my music on Spotify from my accessible communist iPhone, but it also opened up new possibilities for gaming. Casual games like Angry Birds or Get the Rope became immensely popular, attracting a wide range of users, including those who had never considered themselves gamers before. By appealing to casual gamers, Nintendo and Apple significantly expanded the gaming market and created a more inclusive and diverse gaming landscape. These companies understood that gaming could be enjoyed by everyone, regardless of their age, gender, or gaming experience, and they tailored their products and services to meet the needs of these new audiences. At least when it came to financial reports, they knew it works. For the sake of making a point, they created a distinction between two types of gamer audiences: the core gamer demographic, or mainstream one, which is mainly cis white straight male centric, and the general gamer demographic.
I refrain from calling the latter casual gamers because I don't want to get into Dark Souls tier discourse at this moment yet. For ages, the core gamer demographic has become a stereotype for the general gamer audience, suffering from a severe social stigma that will carry on even to this day. If not just being bullied in high school for being such a nerd for playing Ultima Online, media institutions and governments have stigmatized the gamer demographic as many things, from the roots of the satanic panic around it until today. Okay, just in case you're not a boomer like me, the satanic panic was a moral panic that occurred in the United States during the 1980s and the early 1990s, and it kind of spreads onto today for some reason. I'm looking at you, Lil Nas X. Call me by your name. It was characterized by widespread fear and suspicion of Satanism, and it led to a number of false accusations and prosecutions of people who were accused of engaging in satanic rituals or child abuse. This obviously targeted not just gaming in general, digital or otherwise, but also cartoons, popular media, music, and even the LGBT community, as if it wasn't bad enough. Gaming in general was targeted by the satanic panic because of its association with violence and the occult. Many people believe that violent video games such as Doom and Mortal Kombat were corrupting children and leading them to commit acts of violence. Additionally, some people believe that role-playing games such as Dungeons & Dragons were gateways to Satanism and the occult, because of course playing D&D will make me want to go to my bedroom to summon a demonic beholder. I am a witch, please someone contain me. There was no evidence to support these claims. However, the satanic panic was fueled by sensationalist media coverage and by testimony of a number of people who claimed to have been involved in satanic cults. These claims were often later retracted or found to be false. The satanic power, however, had a devastating impact on the gaming industry. Many video games were banned or censored, and many game developers were forced to self-censor their games in order to avoid controversy. The satanic panic also led to a number of lawsuits against the game companies, and it contributed to the negative stigma that still surrounds gaming today. The Entertainment Software Rating Board, ESRB, was created in 1994 in response to the controversy surrounding video games and violence. The ESRB is a self-regulatory organization that assigns age and content warnings to video games. The ESRB was created to help parents make informed decisions about which video games are appropriate for their children. Despite the efforts of the ESRB, however, there is still a negative stigma surrounding gaming today. That stigma is often perpetuated by older people who are unfamiliar with video games or who have negative stereotypes about gamers. The negative stigma surrounding gaming can make it difficult for gamers to be taken seriously and can also lead to discrimination against gamers. Because older boomers are scared of new technology, bad, mean, or like, they tend to make association with gamers to all sorts of bad, mean things, like Satan even.
Mortal number 2. Doom número 2.
It's not just about the satanic panic though. So oftentimes a gamer, especially on the core demographic, is often seen as an average Reddit user. Basement-dwelling, neck-bearded, fully fat or lanky or unhealthy, it usually falls in line with the usual white male demographic, and it carries a negative baggage in a general gamer demographic. Often games are also blamed for violent acts, and one such scapegoat for accusing video games for causing such as the Columbine High School shooting in 1999. The violent video game discourse was not new back then, but especially with the arrival of games like Mortal Kombat or Doom, like I said, gamers were often cast out like lepers for this sort of correlation, and there were huge political implications surrounding the circumstances as well. Thanks, Lieberman. Look, plenty of other people have already made meaningful discussions about whether video games cause real-life violence or not, so I'll just be brief here. It's not just for that association. There's always the fact that the media, institution, and government saw games as not genuine medium, but as a pointless and purposeless hobby that was constantly looked down upon. Eventually, there was the case of a kid beating a world record on Tetris, only to be downplayed by a Sky News reporting telling him to touch grass, go play outside, you fucking loser. This still happened at the time of writing this very recently, like in 2024. Today, the common ground known gamer might see the gamer's core demographic differently, perhaps in a better light today. But regardless, like I will later point out in this video, this created attention within the core gamer demographic, attention that some people even might exploit. Even then, the games media has grown to an extent where it just became another form of art, like film, music, and even regular art.
people and even normal people outside the core gamer demographic have grown to have the same kind of emotional experiences and attachments the same way they will have in film or music. It's no wonder why even a lot of people are nostalgic for a lot of games like Doom, Mario, Halo, Call of Duty. For them, these games have created memorable experiences, the same way a particular scene in a movie got personal to any of these normies. And now that the games industry is capable of such a thing, of getting certain emotional attachments from people the same way any other art form does, it caters to a wider variety of people, more diverse even, to enjoy these games even enough to have their particular experiences. The reason why I've grown so attached to games like Doom is because of the experiences I have showing Doom to my relatives and friends, and sharing even with my own Doom-related creations with people even in the Doom community. And the same way Doom does that for me, there are people willing to openly share those similar experiences with other games. Like high scores they got, the frags they got in a match, the good stuff. It might be my obvious hyperfixation by then, but that's how it is. But still, the depressing thing about this is that the media and higher institutions treat video games like a child's play hobby, like a worthless pastime and a time waster. And still to this day, are downplaying the joy and love for video games as a stereotype that the core gamer demographic has indirectly created, or rather, it was turning into through external factors outside of the control.
There's still the undeniable reality that politicians like Donald Trump and the sort playing video games for mass shooting violence multiple times even, and pop culture media doesn't help either when there are still examples of negative gamer and geek representation there. In popular culture, the portrayal of gamers are often seen as social outcasts, introverts, nerds, or general pariahs of society. This negative stereotyping is particularly evident in shows like The Big Bang Theory and South Park, as well as in many other neoliberal Hollywood tier popular media. This negative portrayal is problematic because it perpetuates harmful stereotypes and contributes to the social isolation and marginalization of gamers. Furthermore, this negative misrepresentation of gamers is often compounded by the negative portrayal of neurodivergent people in popular media. For example, people with autism are often portrayed as socially awkward and strange, and this can lead to further stigmatization and discrimination against both gamers and neurodivergent people. This negative portrayal can have a serious impact on the lives of gamers and neurodivergent people, leading to feelings of isolation, shame, and low self-esteem. True that a lot of these stereotypes and perception of gamers have started to erode, and people are starting to give gamers a more positive representation, but the relief is that it's still in its very early infancy, and the core gamer demographic has grown not overly super offensive to these sorts of outsiders because of the entire trauma society has given them. It's basically like the treatment Soul Jane got in World of Warcraft before the Blood Elves joined the Horde. After so much bullying and abuse from the entire society, one grows a grudge big enough to cause problems. Problems that I will later describe in this video. That analogy is not going to go away, is it?
Despite all of this, the gamer audience has grown way beyond the core gamer demographic of white, cis, straight guys of yore. With the growth of the industry and how expensive it has started to get, the audience expanded since game companies needed to basically make ends meet somehow. Going back to the economics part of the gaming industry, that provoked this paradigm shift. This came around from a statement about Gamergate in the escapist back then, which I quote,
"And yet, why do game publishers have to service the mainstream, some will ask? Why can't they just keep selling games for gamers?" One word: economics. As gaming hardware has become more powerful, utilizing that hardware has become more expensive, and this has driven the cost of games up. When a AAA game costs $500,000 and sold for $40, a game could have a narrow appeal, turn-based strategy, for example, and still turn a profit. Nowadays, a top game costs as much as $250 million, but still sells for about the same inflation-adjusted price as it did when it cost $500,000. Big game publishers had two ways of responding to this challenging economic trend: develop different types of products at different price points for different consumers, or make Ferraris and sell them to Honda buyers at Chevrolet prices. Car manufacturers, movie studios, television companies, clothing retailers, and everyone else have chosen the first course of action. Big game publishers have, until recently, pursued the second course of action. They have kept on making and selling AAA games at higher and higher cost, kept the price the same, and tried to appeal to a wider audience, typically by reducing complexity and challenge and adding features that some new target consumer might find appealing. You might think of it as the one ring strategy. One game to sell to them all, and in their ubiquity bind them. We're beginning to see game publishers make and sell the equivalent of Volvo S60s for working parents. We're beginning to see publishers figure out how to profitably develop and sell Corvettes to Corvette enthusiasts. And we're even seeing publishers make Ferraris, price them like bicycles, and ask us to pay more for gas to make up the difference. Those games are called free-to-play MMOs. So the trends are in the right direction. We'll get through the shakeups, and gamer culture will live on. There will always be enthusiasts, and games that are conducive to enthusiastic play. Why? Because enthusiasts buy a lot of games. And those games will always be closer to world. You might think of it as the one ring strategy. One game to sell to them all, and in their ubiquity bind them. It rewards an investment of time and energy in a way the latter simply doesn't. True, as the industry grows, some publishers or media sites that once catered to gamers may decide to aim their efforts at different segments of game consumers. But there will always be publishers, websites, and communities that cater to the needs of enthusiasts, like this one, The Escapist. Gamers are welcome here.
The writings at The Escapist might be controversial to say the least, but it indicated that starting trends in the Gamergate days of changing economics in the gaming industry that influenced the gamer demographic as well, in a way that it became just more diverse. Just look at what has happened since the Wii and smartphones came out. These will have honestly their own set of problems that game companies had to face. For one, representation. The new audience doesn't even feel fit to relate to game characters that are macho dudes with guns or blades, or women who are so sexualized it might be uncomfortable. If you've been gaming for a while, probably around the same time period as I was, you'll be aware that the paradigm of representation in gaming started changing around, say, 2013 or 2014 or so, when more diverse voices started pointing out the same white male-centered tropes over and over. It was a point when the industry started listening to more diverse voices, even if it was just for keeping the profits. Hold on. Maybe I need definitely to shut down my computer while I sleep. But the gaming audience, now that there are many more ways of using gaming technology than ever, and I mean, look at you, you're probably having games on the same smartphone you're watching this very video on. Smash the like button if you're watching this video on your phone. Now that there's a wider spectrum of means to play games, the gaming audience has expanded, even eroded the previous boundaries it had previously.
Okay, so let's say the case scenario. Remelia was the first woman to the professional tier of League of Legends and was qualified for competing as such. The book Queerness in Play, published in 2018, described the situation as the abject scapegoat. It's an interesting chapter if you want to read it by yourself, although why wouldn't you? You read Twitter on a regular basis. Remedia's arrival in the League of Legends esports scenes shattered long-standing boundaries that often define digital gaming spaces. Traditionally, these spaces have been characterized by rigid distinctions between male and female, gamer and athlete, and human and technology. However, Remedia's presence challenged these conventions. As a female gamer who achieved remarkable success in a male-dominated field, she disrupted traditional notions of gender roles in esports. Her ability to compete at the highest level demonstrated that skill and determination transcend gender. Furthermore, Remedia's seamless integration of technology into her gameplay showcased the symbolic relationship between humans and technology in esports. Her mastery of the game mechanics and her ability to adapt to technological advancements highlighted the importance to technological literacy and innovation in the esports landscape.
Remili's impact extended beyond her individual achievements. Her success inspired a new generation of gamers, particularly young women, to pursue their passions in esports without being limited by societal expectations. She became a role model for aspiring gamers, demonstrating that dedication, hard work, and willingness to challenge established norms can lead to greatness. The League of Legends community, for instance, after focusing on Remili's alleged transgender status, starting shoring up these set boundaries by objectifying her, a lot of times using transphobic tactics to figure her as an insignificant spectacle. At least I could read that verbatim from the study's abstract. Sorry, I can afford paying 30 buckaroos for this whole thing. The core gamer demographic, traditionally dominated by cis male gamers, has long been a source of exclusion and hostility towards marginalized groups such as women and LGBTQ+ individuals. But where recent years have been seen a growing movement within the gaming community to challenge the status quo and promote inclusivity. One of the key issues at the heart of this movement is the erosion of boundaries between different types of games and players. Traditionally, games have been divided into distinct categories, such as hardcore games that emphasize talent and competition, and casual games that are more accessible and less demanding. This division often reflects gender stereotypes, and hardcore games being associated with masculinity, and casual games being seen as more feminine. As the gaming landscape has evolved, these boundaries have become increasingly blurred. The rise of indie games and mobile gaming has brought a wider range of games to a broader audience, and the players are no longer as easily pigeonholed into one category or another. This has led to some anxiety among core gamers who feel that their traditional gaming spaces are being invaded by outsiders. This anxiety is often rooted in a sense of entitlement and privilege. Core gamers have long been the dominant force in the gaming industry, and they are not accustomed to having their preferences challenged. This erosion of boundaries threatens the sense of ownership over the gaming culture, and it forces them to confront their own biases and prejudices. Of course, not all core gamers are resistant to change. There is a growing number of players who recognize the importance of inclusivity and diversity in gaming. They understand that the gaming community is stronger when it welcomes people from all walks of life. The erosion of boundaries is a challenge of cis male privilege in gaming spaces, but it also is an opportunity for growth and progress. By embracing inclusivity and diversity, the gaming community can become more welcoming and enjoyable for everyone. This privilege, though, is pretty usual in the games industry because in pre-Gamergate times, for 2009 standards, there was an overrepresentation of white male characters in gaming similar to that of television and media in general of the time. The industry catered to this core gamer demographic so hard that it was pretty obvious they will feel pretty insecure when this privilege is challenged by any means, let alone one single female, allegedly trans, esports athlete coming to the scene on one single male-centric game, like League of Legends. Look, you know who you are if you play League of Legends. You haven't probably showered in 2 months and you stink like Smackma already. Don't be silly, dude. It is often said that we are what we eat, but this adage can be applied to more than just our physical health. Our identities are also shaped by what we consume, whether it is food, media, or even our experiences. In the case of gamers, this 2015 study found that gamer identity is primarily associated with stereotypical behaviors that originate from consumption logic. This means that gamers tend to identify with certain products, brands, and experiences that are associated with gaming culture. For example, gamers may wear clothing and accessories that feature their favorite video game characters or logos. They may also collect gaming merchandise such as figurines, posters, and soundtracks, and they may attend gaming conventions and events to meet other gamers and experience the latest games. The consumption logic extends beyond the physical world and into the digital realm. Gamers often spend a significant amount of time and money on in-game purchases such as new weapons, skins, and characters. They may also subscribe to online gaming services such as Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus to access online multiplayer, a whole plethora of cheap-ass games, and other features. This consumption logic can have a profound impact on gamer identity. For some gamers, it can create a sense of community and belonging. They may feel connected to other gamers who share their interests and values, while others can lead to a sense of isolation and alienation. They may feel like they are constantly being bombarded with messages about what they should buy and consume. Regardless of the impact, it is clear that consumption plays a significant role in gamer identity. It is a way for gamers to express themselves, connect with others, and experience the world of gaming.
This 2015 study, which is cited in the sources linked in the description, by the way, goes on, and I quote,
"Results suggest that gamer identity is first and foremost associated with stereotypical behaviors that find their origin in a consumption logic. Friendship networks, however, provide an important environment in which gamer identity can be performed. When considering our results more generally, at first sight, a gamer identity still largely seems to be defined in relation to the stereotypical image forwarded by the gaming industry. Indeed, a gamer identity is still constructed, first and foremost, through a direct investment in the medium itself, i.e., by playing digital games. This holds true for the categorization of self and of others. A gamer identity is also connected to issues of gender, albeit less radical than one might have expected. Indeed, gender plays an equally important role as the kind of content that is played for the age of the player. Hence, whilst the gamer identity started out as an industry construction, typically addressing males, today it seems that there is some room to be more inclusive. The role played by a friendship environment is also something to take into account, considering that players live in a multitude of social contexts and situations. The degree to which a friendship environment is associated with one's gamer identity is highly relevant. It might be interesting for future research to consider how a gamer identity relates to other social environments. For instance, those environments that have been created especially with gamers in mind, such as websites.
What was pretty much going on is that there was this vicious cycle of industry and demographic gathering to each other, perpetuating not just the white cis male, straight male gamer stereotype, but also the male-centric dominance of gaming representation. Then we have situations around the time of Gamergate, which is a whole can of worms I'm not going to open for free, become a Goon today. But there was a time where the industry noticed there was an influx of more diverse, non-cis, non-white, non-straight, and non-male gamers into the demographic. So when the industry started making baby steps into a more diverse representation in games, the core audience fuckers started feeling insecure. The normie bullies that bullied us for being nerds want to join in? Screw them too! Oh, now Stacy wants to join the gamer club too. What's next? Starting an OnlyFans to make me finally cure my blue balls? And Soljin said, now the elves want to join the Horde. I despise the Horde too, especially Sylvanas. That bitch wants to join the Horde. What's next? Giant tree genocide? Yeah, see, that's a great analogy because World of Warcraft is totally good. I swear that game is a gigantic waste of time. So you know the response towards the boundary of erosion was completely obvious. Like Soljin creating a troll apocalypse within its own lair, gamers started to rely on a lot of bad shit. And you can see I'm really cringing with these World of Warcraft analogies here.
Remelia's case is not the first nor the last case of harassment she has faced by the hands of the core gamer demographic. This very core demographic is starting to lose ground to more diverse voices in gaming. And if things like Gamergate teach us something, is that the core white cis male gamer demographic will try everything they can to justify a basic ass harassment campaign. Okay, what the fuck?
Greetings.
Elon Musk, seriously, like, for real? Out of all people, I have all of a sudden got hacked by Elon Musk.
Actually, close, but no. My name is Fallon Tusk, CEO of Tesla Corporation, an interdimensional corporate conglomerate which is very successful in the interdimensional technological enterprise.
Right, okay, so real quick or else I'll be forced to boot up my antivirus on you.
Your antivirus has nothing in its power to stop this transmission. This is not malware. For you see, this transmission is only made through an advanced communications technology that doesn't require anything but a satellite direct connection to your Wi-Fi. But that's not the point. My point is, this narrative you're presenting in your video is harmful to our enterprise and the economic well-being of our benefactors.
Okay, so what are you gonna do? Call the cyber police? Fucking numbnut. I wouldn't be surprised about you, like our earthly counterpart Elon being a fascist trick.
This is your last warning. We have taken direct measures on your planet. Seize your narratives, retract what you said, and...
I guess the escape key does wonders for that. But the core gamer demographic, the white cis-string male one, was starting to notice something. They were losing ground, and it was starting to be taken less seriously by the industry as a whole, given to how they respond with harassment campaigns. So this core demographic of oppressed gamers maybe will be more accepting of the incoming new gaming demographic, right? Nope, they double down like they usually do.
Gamergate is not the first nor the last manner of the core gamer demographic has policed their gamer identity. The 90s were predominantly very hostile to women either way, especially when the whole industry back when then was baby feeding the white cis straight male folks out there. But ever since Gamergate, as the industry doesn't need to babysit the dudes any longer all the time and cater to wider variety of other demographics, because that's just how business goes, there has been a rising facet of angry propagandists using the means of gaming as a way to spread their propaganda. Previously in this channel we're talking about people like Sargon of Akkad who rode the wave of Gamergate and ritual. But little do you know that especially today, a myriad of equally heinous propagandists who have always been constantly mad and raging certain cultural trends in gaming for clicks and money, aside of spreading an obvious fascist agenda. These are fascists in disguise of regular gamers, disguised as the usual art/gaming type of gamer channels like The Quartering, Neurotic, Geeks and Gamers, and plenty others have pioneered the art of smearing shit into the gaming discourse and blaming all of the ills on the industry on the woke agenda or anything similar. Viewers of ours recognize the recent rising trend of these people attacking companies like Sweet Baby Incorporated, a narrative consulting agency for gaming companies dedicated to counsel game developers into improving their game's narrative with a more inclusive approach. No, seriously, that's all they do. I know I'm pretty much late to this whole thing, but hey, it's never late to the constant bombardment of anti-woke narratives in gaming, I suppose. Sweet Baby Incorporated had the colossal mistake of once of feeding into the trolls coming from the depths of the old Gamergate and created some sort of Streisand effect where the bashing of said Sweet Baby exponentially exploded, leading to a constant obsession from anti-woke rhetoric against Sweet Baby Incorporated's counseling and of course DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusivity, which is a new buzzword anti-woke people like to spew over. I think I'm doing a disservice by explaining again what this is all about. These people on the anti-woke content creator space in gaming are not real gamers. No, they are interested in improving the gaming space in any way conceivable. They're all fascist mouthpieces who are more interested in spreading the fascist ideology through the means of media culture, discourse, and fandom culture. This is being explained at the time of writing this better by a whole plethora of similar creators to me, but it's no wonder why it's like this with not just gaming, but also other popular media like Marvel, Star Wars, and so on. The irony of all of this is that this and the Sweet Baby Incorporated controversy reflect a deeper conflict within the gaming community regarding diversity and inclusion. Some people may applaud Sweet Baby's efforts to promote representation, but others view it with suspicion and distrust. And this is even worse because, again, the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories. I really hate going back to that PlayStation startup video we did like a long while ago, but even more of it rings true even after the video we did on deepfakes and AI, both videos are recommended viewing by the way. This kind of stuff underscores the importance of critical thinking and evaluating information from reliable sources, which is kind of hard to find given that kind of YouTube comments we usually get in some videos of some many Austrian painters out there. This controversy and many more behind it highlight the challenges and complexities of promoting diversity in the gaming industry, or at least trying. The industry at this point is trying at least to grow infinitely no matter the cost, and the way some of these gaming companies promote diversity or include diversity at least, not because of genuine representation, but because of treating audiences like literal walking wallets, is going to feed back into the gaping mouth of these fashy flatmouths, taking all sorts of trash about DEI and about how Star Wars black woman bad. Some companies even have tried catering to the needs of these insulish nerds, and while at first they found success in that, later on they found out that like SJWs or woke audiences they claim to be against, they're never happy about these games catering to them, because unless it is a perfect piece of fascist propaganda in disguise for the normies out there, it's never good enough for them. They don't care about games, they care about spreading an ideology that excludes and even analyzes people they deem lesser. The reason the discourse on the new Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Earth Tree, and the abusive difficulty spike it implies is not because they want us to get good with hard games, it's because they want to exclude people with disabilities out of the gamer community. The reason discourse surrounding the upcoming Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Earth Tree has sparked a broader conversation about gaming industry's approach to accessibility and inclusivity. While some may dismiss these complaints about the game's purported difficulty spike as mere excuses from those unwilling to put the effort to get good, a deeper examination reveals a more sinister agenda. The developers of Elden Ring, From Software, have a long history of creating notoriously challenging games that require players to possess superhuman reflexes and unwavering determination. While this approach might have been lauded by some hardcore gamers, it has been also excluded a significant portion of the gaming community, namely those with disabilities. For individuals with physical or cognitive impairments, the daunting difficulty of Elden Ring's combat and exploration can present an insurmountable barrier. Simple tasks that able-bodied players take for granted, such as dodging enemy attacks or navigating complex environments, can become Herculean feats for those with limited mobility or impaired vision. The exclusion of people with disabilities from the gaming community is not merely a matter of inconvenience, it is a form of discrimination. By failing to provide accessible options, game developers are effectively telling people with disabilities that they are not welcome in the gaming world. This not only deprives them of the opportunity to enjoy a popular form of entertainment, but it also reinforces the societal stigma surrounding disability. The discourse on Elden Ring's DLC is not simply about whether the game is too hard. It is about whether the gaming industry values inclusivity, by demanding that players conform to a narrow standard of skill and physical ability. From Software and other developers like them are perpetuating an environment where only a privileged few are truly welcome. It is imperative that the gaming industry takes meaningful steps to address the needs of people with disabilities. This includes implementing accessibility features such as not just adjustable difficulty settings, subtitles, and colorblind modes, but also a game where you can fucking pause. This also requires a shift in mindset where the game developers view accessibility not as an afterthought, but as an essential component of game design. The gaming community has the power to drive change by speaking out against inaccessible games and demanding better representation. We can create a more inclusive environment where everyone, regardless of their abilities, can enjoy the magic of gaming. That's why there should be an easy mode in the next Souls game. There shouldn't be a controversial statement, believe it or not. Ironically, while they claim the real gamers are being excluded of the gaming community, they have to exclude diversity in gaming. At least those who aren't white, able, cis, straight, and male gamers. The kind of gamers these mini Hitlers will prey upon to spread their propaganda. And it works for them. Not everyone is smart enough to get out like I did and realize after all this time that all this diatribe is nothing more than gobble steer shit.
It's kind of hard to draw on a useful conclusion.
Countdown to Planet Cracker Planet destruction in 5 minutes. Thank you for trusting Desla Corporation.
Oh no, 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 no! My planet's going to be destroyed! What do I do? Well, asshat, you just pissed off Felon Tusk enough to destroy your planet in less than 5 minutes. Is that me? Let's be more precise, I'm you from another dimension. Now let's just avoid the feather and get to the point. You have to type the Konami code on your keyboard. What? Why? Look, there's no easy explaining. Like you said, some people are friggin' stupid enough for gobble shit, and Felon is not smart enough to build up a good enough planet cracker disarmament password key code. So he put the basic Konami code that we all gamers know to disarm the whole thing. Hell, he still puts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in his briefcases. Now, don't waste any more time and just tap the Konami code on your keyboard. You know how it is, right? Right, up, down, left, right, VA, enter.
Planet Cracker disarmed. Thank you for trusting Tesla Corporation. Have a nice day.
What a relief. Yeah, thank me later. Look, as hard as it might be, don't get yourself ever again in more trouble like this, okay? Felon can get easily provoked by like any other far-right douchebag out there. Hold on, I have so many questions. Too bad, I cannot answer for them right now because I now gotta get myself into another space fight fighting off Felon and these Tesla goons away from your dimension. I guess the only ones who might notice is someone like NASA or some shit, but who cares? It's not like we care about the people who faked the moon landing for once before the real deal. Anyway, smell you later, Gator. So, it's kind of hard to draw any useful conclusions to this, given that most of the audience that watches these types of videos don't pay much attention to them, but I'll try my best. The concept of gamer identity has evolved significantly over time, shaped by historical, social, and economic factors. The industry's expansion, driven by technological advancements and the need to reach wider audiences, has challenged the traditional notion of a gamer. This expansion, while positive in many aspects, had also led to a division within the gaming community. The core gamer demographic, historically marginalized and stereotyped, has become increasingly defensive and resistant to change. This defensiveness, fueled by external factors like media representation and political scapegoating, has created tension and hostility towards newcomers, particularly those from diverse backgrounds. The rise of the anti-woke rhetoric and propaganda within the gaming community further exacerbates this division. Figures like Sargon of Akkad and channels such as The Quartering and Neurotic exploit these insecurities, spreading misinformation and reinforcing harmful stereotypes. The controversy surrounding Sweet Baby Incorporated exemplifies the challenges faced by those advocating for diversity and inclusion in gaming. While some applaud their efforts, others view them with suspicion, highlighting the complexities of navigating these issues. It is crucial to recognize that the gaming industry's pursuit of profit plays a significant role in shaping those dynamics. Companies driven by economic imperatives often prioritize expanding their audience and maximizing revenue, sometimes at the expense of genuine representation and inclusivity. The core gamer demographics' resistance to change, while understandable given the history of marginalization, is ultimately counterproductive. By clinging to an exclusionary identity, they risk alienating potential allies and hindering the growth of a more diverse and welcoming gaming community. The gaming industry, for its part, must move beyond tokenistic gestures and commit to meaningful representation and inclusion. This requires not only diversifying characters and narratives, but also addressing systemic issues within the industry, such as the underrepresentation of marginalized groups in development and leadership roles. Gamers themselves have a role to play in fostering a more inclusive community. This involves challenging harmful stereotypes, calling out discriminatory behavior, and supporting creators and developers who prioritize diversity and representation. Ultimately, the future of gaming depends on the ability of all stakeholders to embrace change and work towards a more inclusive and equitable space. This requires ongoing dialogue, education, and a commitment to challenging the status quo. While the chances are undeniable, the potential rewards of a more diverse and inclusive gaming community are immense. By embracing a broader range of perspectives and experiences, the industry can unlock new levels of creativity, innovation, and social impact. Video games are an art form, after all, a form of artistic expression. It should remain that way. Why then do you think games like Cultist Squad or hell, even Psycho Patrol are exist? Okay, yeah, maybe not every game is a piece of art. I'm not calling Fortnite or FIFA any sort of art form whatsoever, and I mean, just look at it. But the lack of seriousness the institutions and media have given to the games and medium has indirectly created a subset of gamers who, as they're not taken more seriously like the film or music industry, they're relegated to being pariahs of society, and they have to pay their misery with marginalized groups within the gaming community, whether it is racialized people or LGBT people or even women in gaming or people with disabilities or neurodivergent people. This lack of appreciation for video games as art does not just do that, because it creates a consumer sloppy tier products that are only meant for mass consumption, so we can have the illusion of being on par with the film or music industry at Hollywood or somewhere else. Hence why we have our FIFAs and Fortnite. Look, it's a business cycle. The 90s gaming was not designed with the good optics in mind, and maybe games were originally just conceived as a way to sell TVs and phone consoles. But we're pretty much getting closer to the video game and the medium being taken seriously. Games like the Last of Us series have been causing quite a stir in the gaming community, with folks arguing about whether it's more like a game or a movie. Some critics are saying that the latest game, The Last of Us Part 2, is too much of a movie or an average AMC drama and not enough like a game. They're writing that the cutscenes on the linear storyline make it feel like you're just watching a movie, and they reckon that this takes away from the whole point of a video games. They also think that the game is too violent and graphic, and that it's trying to shock and manipulate players emotionally instead of giving them a fun and engaging experience. They say that it's more like an interactive movie than a real game. But other people, more power to them, are defending The Last of Us Part 2, saying that the cinematic approach actually makes the story better. They say that the slow pace and the focus on character development make it more impressive and emotional. They also reckon that the linearity of the game is a good thing because it helps to reinforce the themes and messages of this story. So the debate about this Last of Us Part 2 is really about the future of video games. As games become more like movies to some degree, we need to ask ourselves what makes a game a game. Is it the interactivity? Is it the storytelling? Or is it something else entirely? The Last of Us Part 2 is a bold experiment in this regard, and whether or not it succeeds is up to each individual player to decide. Although that's not for the piss babies of the anti-woke gaming community to decide, if we're being frankly honest. Same with the difficulty discourse in gaming. I beg more people, regardless of their physical or mental capabilities, to enjoy more games and a wider catalog of games. And I notice especially there's a higher effort lately in accessibility in gaming. That's why channels like Laura Kate Dale exist to remind us that video games can be enjoyed by anyone regardless of physical or mental condition without being treated like a walking wallet or like a complete idiot. It is gatekeeping on the gaming community on people of color, women, LGBT folks, or even neurodivergent or disabled people, or even people who don't like traditional video games as much, is unnecessary and petty, and it only contributes not only to a decline of the economy of the games industry, but for better or for worse, but it also creates a more hostile community where people of diverse backgrounds are not safe. And this was clearly evident with Gamergate or the Sweet Baby Incorporated controversy. If I can define gamer identity as a whole, to sum up this whole thing, it isn't the gamer stereotype that the institutions and media created since the satanic panic and the censoring of video game violence. It's not just the white male cis strict dudes who used to dominate the community. It's a whole that, regardless of their identity in this world, can enjoy any game despite anything, at least in a safe environment. Gamer identity is a complex and multifaceted thing. It's not just about what games you play or how often you play them. It's about the sense of community and belonging that comes from being part of a shared experience. It's about the way that games can allow us to explore our own identities and to connect with others who share our interests. The gamer identity is one that is constantly evolving. As the gaming landscape changes, so too does the way that we identify as gamers. The one thing that remains constant is the sense of community and belonging that comes from being part of this vibrant and diverse group. In the past, the gamer identity was often associated with negative stereotypes. Gamers were seen as being antisocial, violent, and misogynistic. However, these stereotypes simply are not true. The vast majority of gamers are well-adjusted, productive, and members of society. Today, the gamer identity is more diverse than ever before. These are gamers of all ages, races, genders, and sexual orientation. There are gamers with disabilities, gamers who are parents, and gamers who are grandparents. The gamer identity is one that is open to everyone. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. If you love to play games, then you are a gamer. So, let's embrace our gamer identity. Let's celebrate the diversity of our community. Let's continue to make gaming a place where everyone feels welcome. And if you can do something, please, for the love of Jim Flynn, don't pay attention to these anti-woke grifters and just enjoy games. I know it's pretty hard to not quote anything they make, but the attention they get and the potential radicalization they can lead others to is not worth your time investment. They rely on that attention economy, especially not just for propaganda, but for money. Use that attention wisely to boost positive change into the gaming community. In this age of social media where everyone has a voice, it's more important than ever to think critically and not get sucked into the drama caused by anti-woke grifters. These people just want attention, and they'll say anything to get it. They'll thrive on outrage and controversy, and they don't care who they hurt in the process. When you engage with their post, even if it's just to call them out, you're giving them exactly what they want. It's like feeding a troll. They want you to get mad and argue with them so they can feel important. Don't give them the satisfaction. Plus, many of these grifters make money off their platforms. They get sponsorships, donations, and sell merch. So when you engage with their content, you're basically helping them line their pockets. Instead of giving these grifters the attention they crave, let's focus on making the gaming industry a better place. We can do this by supporting developers who create diverse and inclusive games, speaking out against toxic behavior, and amplifying the voices of marginalized groups. Let's drown out the negativity and make gaming a more welcoming and enjoyable space for everyone. So next time you see an anti-woke grifter trying to stir up trouble, just ignore them. Don't give them the attention they crave. Instead, focus on being part of the solution. That being said, I hope you learned something valuable from me. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'll go back to playing Call of Duty, the best game ever made!